back with the NFL rundown on talkSPORT's dedicated NFL YouTube channel, talkSPORT End Zone. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, leave some comments under this video. Let us know your thoughts and of all the great content we've got coming up over this week as we build up to the Christmas games, of course, live on talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. But we've been very AFC heavy in this show so far. And that's stunning considering we're in a position, Brian, where the NFC might have just been blown wide open. The Detroit Lions suffer their second loss of the season to the Buffalo Bills, maybe the best team in football right now. But it opens up that seed. It leaves Philadelphia level with them on just 2 losses this season. A bunch of other teams waiting in the wings behind them. Minnesota there in their division. Their injury problems a huge factor as well. But when we look at this game on Sunday night against the Bills, a controversial decision from Dan Campbell with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You're down 10 points and you go for the onside kick. And for me, not even their best onside kick, because when they tried it again towards the end of the game, you see it here. Matt Collins, it's a standard onside kick to the outside. Ball bounces up and Matt Collins takes it down to the 5-yard line. Later in the game, they go for a surprise kick up the middle and look much more likely to recover it. So you're not even gone for your best play. You've done it when there's plenty of time left in the game and you're only down 2 scores. And Dan Campbell afterwards, I mean, admittedly, he was pretty reticent about the decision. He owned it.
First onside kick, what kind of motivated you to do that early?
I thought we'd get the possession, you know. I thought we were going to get that ball. And one of Bates' best kicks that I've seen him have, that was a big kicker at the end. You know, that thing took a good jump on us. And Hollis made a heck of a play on it. And, you know, obviously now sitting here hindsight after them taking it down to the 3-yard line, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But it is what it is.
It's funny because Ollie Connolly said something earlier which rang really true with me, in that when he joined us, he said that the nerds still love it, the smart people still love it. Even if you fail, they'll tell you you've made the right choice. Now, that was talking more about the fourth downs, but they've gone for more onside kicks, more fake field goals, more fourth downs than any other team in the NFL over this past 3-4 years whilst he's been head coach. A lot of the time we love it, but it cost them the NFC Championship game against the 49ers when they could have just seen that game out, kicked field goals, and would have won that game. And that onside kick decision from Dan Campbell on Sunday may have been the difference between them coming back in that game and not.
The difference in that game for me, Will, was that Buffalo put up 48 points. Or, you know, Buffalo almost scored 50 points. Buffalo had Josh Allen. Buffalo got out to a huge lead. Look, Detroit has massive injuries. Detroit, there's no stat for this. Detroit is the most injured team in the NFL. They are bleeding injuries. And Dan Campbell's known that. He's been saying this for weeks, that he's trying to make up for that, right? He knows that they have to score, that they can't get it. They're not going to play a 10-7 type of game. That was a bad decision. He owned that decision. Detroit is here, and I will stick by this. Detroit is here because of Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell has completely turned this team around. We had John McClain, a former colleague, a friend of talkSPORT on a few weeks ago. He was saying, you know, he made the point 100% correctly. Dan Campbell has changed the Detroit Lions. They were a joke before. They're not going to get rid of Dan Campbell. He's not going to change his personality. You're not going to be able to trade him or put a bunch of bleach down him and get it all out of him, right? This is who Detroit is, who Dan Campbell is. He has to make better decisions than that, but they also win games because he makes those risky gambling decisions. If I'm Dan Campbell, I fine-tune it a little, right? I screw it in a little more. I have a think, as we'd say in the UK, a little longer. That was a really, really, really poor decision, but they didn't lose the game because of that decision. The Detroit Lions are dealing with a lot right now. I mean, they are really banged up. So he's trying to do everything he can to push this team to the #1 seed so they get a week off and get the rest. But I'm concerned about the Lions right now, Will. I look at Philly, and I've been saying Philly for a while now. Mm-hmm. Philly does not lose. Even when they fight, even in a brotherly love, the offense is good enough. The defense is good enough. Eric Sirianni at times is good enough. Philly, for my money, is a team in the NFC right now. And Minnesota is not far behind Detroit at all.
Yeah, these teams all sat at 12-2 after Minnesota's win on Monday night, all with games ahead of them which are very winnable, but also the Lions face the Vikings, which is going to be the Sunday night football game in Week 18. I can't see maybe Rams Seahawks, because that could be for the division.
I think a few weeks ago I was on this show being like, that game could decide everything, and I think you played that down because the Lions were going anywhere. But what if Minnesota steals this division, without J.J. McCarthy, with Sam Donald, Brian Flores, and they get the #1 seed. What a story that would be.
It's funny because on the other side, we've talked so much about the luck of the Kansas City Chiefs, right? How bad the luck has been for this Detroit Lions side. They lose Ali McNeil, their best interior pass rusher in this game. They lose Carlton Davis, they're probably their second best defensive back in this game. They have 11
David Montgomery. Massive injuries for this team.
They have 16 players on IR right now. They have 11 defensive players on IR that genuinely, when you look at them all lined up together, you maybe need an extra defensive back, but they are a good starting 11 in the NFL. They'd go and win games of football.
They would beat Carolina, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New York Giants. They would smoke all those teams with their injured, broken players right now.
And I struggle with it because you look at this with the Buffalo Bills, right, in the AFC. They've got 8 straight games scoring 30 points. Only 4 teams have done that in NFL history previously. Offensive juggernauts are the thing right now at the end of the season. Yeah. We are super hyped about these teams. But you go back and you look at those 4 teams who have had that same run that Buffalo have had before. It's the 2007 and 2010 Patriots. It's the 2013 Broncos, where Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdowns. Yeah. And it's the greatest show on turf Rams in 2000. 2 of those teams went to the Super Bowl. 2 of them went to the Super Bowl the following season. None of them won it. They scored an average of less than 14 points. Because when you get in the big games, you need to be good on both sides of the ball. You need to be good in all 3 phases.
And teams have 2 weeks to game plan for you.
I think it's a slight concern with Buffalo that the defense hasn't been good, but they've got a chance to get healthy. I don't think the Lions have any chance to get healthy now, unless they start just pulling guys off the street who are going to be able to suddenly go out there and play high-end football. A Lions team who I've said if they don't go to the Super Bowl, somebody's messed up, I think, are now no longer my favourites in the NFC. I like Philly more than them. I like Minnesota more than them. I like the Los Angeles Rams. You mentioned them earlier on.
Yeah.
I think that Sean McVay, with the trio that he's got on offense, with the young defensive pieces he's got, the secondary concerns me a little, but I like him to go into Detroit and win a shootout. I like him to game plan against the Minnesota defense. I like him to game plan against the Philly defense. I just think as a dark horse, when they've got both their they've got 2 #1 wide receivers, and they've got a quarterback who's suddenly showing the form that he didn't show all season. They are just starting to creep into my consideration.
I feel like it's I'm going to say 2 things here. I feel like that's like the Twitter. I'm not going to say anything with the N-word, like nerdy or anything. That's like the hot team right now that people like for a week and they forget about them. They're still like, 8-6 or 7-5. I mean, it's not like they have a great record. I'm going to do 2 things. If Bill Belichick wins championships in the ACC at North Carolina, I will buy Ollie Conley several pints. And if the Los Angeles Rams, and that's on the record, and if the Los Angeles Rams win the Super Bowl with Matt Stafford, I will buy you as many pints as you want in one sitting. I will do that because neither of those things is happening.
Right, 2 things. First of all, that's a lot of pints. Look at the size of me. Secondly, get there. Let's say get there. If they're in the Super Bowl.
You can't have an endless supply, and we'll just stick to ales. We'll do like the cask ales. You can have a few cask ales if the Rams make the Super Bowl.
In the second week of the season on this show, just to wrap this up, I said the Super Bowl I want to see is the Minnesota Vikings against the Buffalo Bills. They've both been there 4 times. They've both lost 4 times. To have the Super Bowl between the 2 4-time losers, one of them will go 1-4 and finally win a championship. One of them will be 0-5 in Super Bowls.
I would love that.
The story of that week would be sensational.
And I would love Sam Darnold. Like, what a story of Sam Darnold winning the Super Bowl and everybody was wrong. I would love it.